Hi. Welcome, everyone. Yale, that was the greatest beginning of anything ever. Does everyone know Yale, the incredible goddess, talent, reason why we're together? Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's right. All right, well, thank you so much. My name's Arianne Nardo. I am not important to this. I am excited for these incredible artists. That's what I'm here for. And maybe some bad jokes about how unbelievably hot it is outside. So hi, welcome, and thank you. To kind of skip what I think a lot of panel presentations do in like reading really long biographies of each of the individual panelists, I'm gonna forgo that, and I'm gonna ask this incredible group of people to kind of self-introduce, if you will. So I'm wondering if each of you wouldn't mind just kind of introducing yourselves, giving us a little brief overview of your work. That way I don't have to read about all your accomplishments and your grandeur, which is all very true. But yeah, I'm like the one that gets to tell people who are in the hot seat. So maybe, Kiara, would you mind? Would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Is this on? Yeah,
yes.
I guess it's on. Hello, everyone. My name is Kiara Morgan, and obviously I'm an artist, painter, but academically trained as a textile designer, primarily surface design. However, I like to say artist and painter first because all of my textiles are derived from my paintings. I'm an abstractionist, so a lot of my work is actually inspired by, I would say, the connection between human nature and Mother Nature. So when you see my work, you're going to see a lot of grids, organic patterns, layering, and whatnot. So I'm really kind of interested in this idea of like the interior landscape and how that's reflected out in nature and the whole collective human psyche. What else can I say except I'm super thrilled to be here today and sitting on this amazing panel with all these amazing individuals. And yeah, let's dive in.
Thank you. Justina?
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm Justina Blakeney. I'm an artist. I'm a designer. I'm a mama. I'm a daughter, a sister, a friend. And my work really just is about whatever is interesting to me in that moment on that day. And it turns out to be a lot of self-portraits. I guess I'm very interested in myself. But I really just love exploring color and form and also exploring bringing things off the canvas. I think my work as a designer for so many years really informs a lot of my work in the way that I like to bring in mixed materials as well. So you'll see that in a lot of my work here. Honored to be here among this incredible group. Thank you so much to Yale for bringing us together, and I'm excited for today.
Hello, I'm Jaime Derringer. I'm a later in life artist, but kind of always felt I was creative, but spent most of my career sharing the creativity of others, which gives me a lot of joy, and doing panels, but always being the moderator and never really being a panelist, so it's exciting. It's actually really exciting to talk about something that's my own work and not someone else's work or design. It's nice to talk about art for a change. So I'm just really happy to be here and tell you all about my work. It's the first time I ever get to really talk about it.
No,
so.
I did. Look at that. World premiere.
So thank you, Yale. Thank you, Yale, for putting me in this show.
I'm gonna embarrass Jamie a little bit. I know Jamie from when I was a full-time magazine editor, so we both have a kind of a media background. And Miss Jamie was the founder of Design Milk. I don't know if that's a property y'all know. Yeah. So this is fabulous that we get to experience this current chapter of you as an artist in this whole other way, and as a panelist. Adrienne.
Awesome. Pleasure to be here. I'm Adrienne Muse, and sometimes known as Madam Muse. I have a collection of pieces around here that I've been hiding away and not really showing, and thanks to Yale, who was a muse of mine, clearly, she got me to dust them off and bring them in. I base most of my work because I am a mother of two daughters, oldest daughter of 2 pastors, and all of their daughters are queer, I think. I can say that. So a lot of my work involves deconstruction and, again, motherhood, sisterhood, and the matriarchy.
Thank you. So we have a lot of themes today, not a lot of time, but I wish we had so much time. But I want to kind of start off with this primary concept that brings us together, which is this notion of the self as muse, which is just super fascinating if you kind of like just think on that for a second. So I want to ask each of you, and again, feel free to answer this how you wish. When you are turning the focus of the work kind of towards yourselves, I'm curious about what happens in that creative process. How is it different than, let's say, working with a different subject or something outside of yourselves? So, Adrienne, would you be willing to kick us off with that and just sort of what it's like?
Sure. I have one self-portrait in the front there, my only one. It's uncanny at first, I'm just going to be honest. I've gone through a lot of different changes, as we all are, I'm sure, recently. And it's a lot of confusing thoughts, especially how we as women are conditioned in whatever society to appear and to act and to present yourself and to dress and to identify. And a lot of people may look at someone and say, well, this is who I think you are, this is my perspective, but I just think the more I look at myself and really just kind of want to share the pieces of what's behind the outer layer of it, like I am a mother and I have my daughters very young, they're like 20-something years old now, so they're my biggest inspirations and artists in their own right. And our biological last name is Muse. So my dad's a Muse, his dad's name is Muse, his dad's a Muse, his dad's a Muse. Yeah, and I just recently discovered my lineage. And I went as far as back as like the 1600s, I think. I'm kind of a nerd with that. So a lot of that kind of represents into my work as well. So the matriarchy is pretty important. I've discovered a lot about the women in my family. And I just kind of want to put it in the work so that my babies and everyone else can kind of know it. That's all.
Justina, I'm going to ask the same question, just this idea of the sort of, when you're thinking about yourself as the muse, kind of what is that creative expression and that experience in your studio like for you?
So I think that for me, it doesn't really matter what I'm working on. I am always my muse. I think I have to be. I don't know if the work would come out if that wasn't the case. I think that, like I mentioned earlier, my work is about learning more and discovering more about myself. And in that process, no matter what the subject is, I'm always having to look inward to pull something out. And I think when that happens, it's just natural that on some canvases, different sides of myself show a sillier side, a more serious side, a more sexy side, a younger side, an older side, and learning about these different parts of myself is illuminating and fun and important for me. And I think that when we turn the lenses on ourselves, especially as women, I think it's very vulnerable for me for the first quite a long time. Once I started getting back into painting as a serious practice, I was embarrassed that I was painting self-portraits, because I think we're taught to hide ourselves, to make ourselves smaller, and to not be show-offy or anything like that. So I was really I'd taken that to heart. I was a little worried about what other people might think about this. And in fact, I was in a group show with Yael, my first group show 2 years ago here at the Pacific Design Center. And I think I had about 12 self-portraits, and I wanted to sprinkle them all over the space. And Yael, I want to say insisted, because you did it in a very gentle way, but you were like, let's put them all on one wall. And I just remember the sinking feeling that I felt when she said that, and I was like, oh God, oh no, let's sprinkle them around, because I was just, the eyes of seeing me put myself up that much felt like really intense to me. And that actually turned out to be such an important and powerful thing for me, to just be able to say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm painting myself. Okay. Like, all right, why can't I? Fuck you guys. Right? Or fuck myself or whatever, but just like, I just want to do what I want and let go of that outside eye looking in and just be the inside eyes looking out, right? And looking in. So yeah, all that to say, self is muse. I don't know how to not be my own muse. If I wasn't my own muse, I don't think I'd be an artist. I think we have to be our own muse.
Wow, that's great. Oh my gosh, so much to say. I have pages of questions, but I want to ask Kira and Jaime similarly this kind of notion of self as muse, because your work is more abstract, if we can say. So in Adrienne and Justina's work, I think we're viewing it as maybe more like a literal portrait of sorts. And Jaime, as your work is more abstract, can you talk a little bit about this idea of how you're interpreting this sort of self as muse?
Yeah, someone told me once, so I've been drawing in a sketchbook since 2006 and just kind of like sharing it on Instagram, and it's still in sketchbooks. I never sell it. Nobody can really buy it. It's for me. But sharing it started to be really, I wanted to do it as accountability, but also to be vulnerable. And someone said to me, maybe a couple years after I was doing these drawings, that they're all self-portraits. And I was like, well, I kind of guess they are, because they're all abstract. So I don't follow a pattern. I follow my intuition, my color intuition, the shape intuition, and it's what comes out of me. So in a way, yes, it is a self-portrait, but I feel like the fiber work that I have here is even more so, because I feel like I was always drawn to textiles, and having drawn for so long, I was like, okay, I'm finally, like, it's lockdown, it's 2020, I have nothing to do, I'm gonna have a new hobby, it's gonna be tufting. I just wanna start making tactile work, and out of that, like, my whole world exploded, and it's just been quite a ride since then of self-exploration. I don't know if you wanted me to get into it now.
Yes.
But like, TLDR, my grandmother's German. I feel like I have German bones, and I feel very tied to the Bauhaus weavers. And there's something about that is just inside of me. And as soon as I touched fiber, I was like, this is where I need to be. But also, I'm really into technology. And so there's this really interesting relationship between the loom and the computer and binary code and punch cards and warp and weft. And so I've been really pushing my work to explore that relationship. But on top of that, the relationship between women's bodies and computers, and the glitch of your bodies as you age and change. And that's the season I'm in my life. And I felt very much like a glitched computer. And so that's kind of what came out of me with this work.
I love the experience of like touching the fiber, and like it was.
Yes, please touch it. You're allowed.
Everyone go touch. But just that kind of had like, there was like an electric reaction, like an inspiration for you. I think that's so cool. I'm not a visual artist. So I'm always in admiration of you all, that you communicate that way, Kira, tell us about the work that we're seeing in here, and how this kind of relates to the self as muse concept.
I mean, similarly to Jaime, obviously being an abstractionist, and it's not a literal, representation of me, and also what you said, Justina, like, how could it not be a representation of me? Me making it, it's definitely a reflection of who I am. And actually, when I go into the studio and look at my work, and I invite other people to come in and look at it, I feel like that is the truest, the most authentic me that you see in the wall. It's almost like you're walking inside my head, my body. It's not this bag of bones and muscles and all of this stuff. It's like really, and a lot of times it's hard for me to even put into words. I guess maybe that's why I'm a visual artist. how I feel in my body. And so that expression through color and shapes and patterns is very much what I feel like and who I am. Like I said earlier about nature being an inspiration for me, and I feel a huge connection between nature, not only just in humanity, but as being a woman and femininity. You know, sitting at the foot of Mother Nature is very much a feminine thing. The earth gives life. You know, everyone here, people that are women, we give life. We are the ultimate creators. So for me, it very much is a self-portrait. I guess that's the best way I can explain it in a very abstract way.
No, that's perfect. That makes perfect sense. Adrienne, I'm wondering about, again, I don't think we're going to not just continue to circuit this notion of muse because there's so much. But Adrienne, I'm wondering from you, like the literal definition of muse is usually like the other, and historically it's one and then the other. And in kind of thinking about it in this different context, you're really erasing that boundary. And so I wonder, what is it like to kind of be the muse and the artist at the same time,
Initially, it was hell. It took a lot. I fought a lot, especially on social media. But to me, that is a form of expression. I just don't think many people are clocking that yet. If it's done right, I still think it's an archival, historical. Like, I shared a lot of this stuff over the years. But I was told to not do it. And then I was told, it was a lot. And then coming from the church, I was supposed to be a pastor. I was supposed to be next in line, but I would always doodle in the Bibles instead. And so it's crazy. But I was always told that I could draw, but never called an artist until I met my partner, and I just kind of cut everything out. And then it was just like, I don't know how to do this. I just know how to not be anxious when I do this. I know how to not be fearful when I do this. I know how to get out, a lot was going on. So I didn't know. And so colors, I became homeless. I was outcasted, for sure. And then disowned or whatever because I got married or earlier. And then a lot of the stuff that turned from drawing and graphite and paper and sketches and stuff like that, color kind of brought me out. I just started experimenting with painting. And it was something about the colors. And then I just, one year and that was when I moved to LA. So maybe 2012 or something. And I've just been wanting to share myself, my raw self, not only through my art, but through my expression, through sharing, my family, and just kind of being an advocate for not only women, but women's freedom to express themselves in however they deem fit. And some kind of way, it just kind of happened to where I started to accept that, even though I may have a muse to come pose for me, these are my friends I painted at her wedding and her daughter. But now, being inspired especially to paint more of my self-portraits, as well as with Yale, I really just kind of want to share myself, everything that I've kind of gone through, just in a raw, even more authentic way that can't even be. They ban me if I posted it online. So I like the idea of just being as raw as possible, especially now.
Wow. So it sounds like you were doing sketching, but did you do kind of human forms and figures early, or did that come a little bit later?
I got to give credit to my middle school art teacher. He made us do everything. We did landscape, portraiture, still life. It was relentless, but I was like a nerd, hyper-focused. But it was always just kind of fun, early stuff.
I love that. I love that you can arrive at this as an artist at any time. I think that in itself is pretty liberating, right? It doesn't have to be this regimented program. Well, my gosh, there's, again, so much to ask you all. So I know, Justina, you had mentioned earlier this notion of vulnerability. And when we were speaking earlier, prior to this wonderful panel, we were talking about vulnerability and confidence, and certainly how vulnerability is a humongous part of being an artist. I wonder, Justina, if you could kind of share your very profound thoughts about confidence and vulnerability, and sort of how they live, how they interact, what they mean together, and some kind of a duality.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that for me, at least, true confidence can't exist without vulnerability, right? You have to be willing to show up as yourself, as much as your complete self as you can figure out how, in order to show up confidently. At least that, for me, is true. I think that when I'm hiding something, you can feel that, right? And then it doesn't necessarily come off as confidence. It might come off as boasting or something like that. But I think true confidence comes from a place of vulnerability and from a place of humility and from a place of we are all here in Earth School and we're all trying to do our best and we're all learning and none of us are perfect. And if you can kind of own that, and I try to own that, then it's a lot easier to show up confident because, at least for myself, I know that about myself. I know that I suck at a lot of things, and I know that I'm pretty great at a lot of things too. And admitting and being vulnerable enough to see and try and work on the parts of myself that I know need more work allows me to show up with more confidence in the areas that I feel genuinely confident in. So I think there's a yin-yang aspect to vulnerability and confidence, and I don't think that true confidence can exist without vulnerability. I think when someone shows up as confident without the vulnerability aspect, it's not true confidence, it's something else. What do you guys think it is?
Yes.
I don't know.
Is there a nice
Arrogance.
word? Yes.
Thank you,
Arrogance.
Mom. It's arrogance. Yeah, so we're all scanning that line and trying to figure out, where that lands exactly. But I do think that for me, vulnerability, like when I see somebody who can stand up in front of other people and be truly vulnerable, there is nothing more confident than that.
I love that. Do you feel differently seeing the work that you've done, or rather that's in this show versus last year? Because you explained earlier and you told us that incredible story of like lining up all the works and you kind of having to confront them that way. But how is that? So that's a pretty profound shift, I'm sure, in you. And now today, seeing the work. Can you kind of talk about what those two have been like or what it's like today for you?
Yeah, and Yael and I were able to do a solo show last year in between. And so I think the journey of the last 2 years of showing my fine art for the first time really with Yael has been a journey of a lot of surrender, like surrendering to I'm making this work and I'm putting it out in the world and I'm no longer in charge of what it means to people. I'm no longer in charge of any aspect of it, really. And so I think that surrender, it started, really with the first show 2 years ago, and then last year even more so, because I was showing a lot of work, and it was just a little bit of like, okay, I'm gonna take a deep breath, I'm gonna exhale, and I'm just gonna go on this journey and see what happens. And so today, coming in here, honestly, it felt very different. It felt very different from the solo show last year. It felt very different from the group show 2 years ago. First of all, I feel very proud and excited to be among such an incredible group of artists today, and just walking around here, just, in all this eye candy with all these incredible people. So, it was 2 years ago, I was coming in, very, very new into all of this. And so I didn't know what to expect. Now, 2 years in, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Not only do I get to, show my pieces here and sort of see how people interact with them and what the vibes are, but I also get to have my work be juxtaposed with all of these other artists, which means they take on new life and new meaning. And in the ways that Yael has curated the space with different themes, it adds another layer of meaning onto my work. And I truly believe that as artists, I've had people ask me in the past, are you afraid now that you're showing your work, it's gonna ruin it for you? You're not gonna wanna paint anymore, right? I was doing design for 20 years and I started it, I'm like, okay, this is fun. I still love parts of it, but there's a lot of it that I don't love anymore, and I'm gonna spend more time painting now. And so, yeah, people have asked me, are you worried that now that you're showing your artwork and selling your work and stuff like that, that it's gonna ruin painting for you? And I said, no, I'm not worried about that. Because I know that if that does happen, I'll find something else I'm interested in doing. maybe I'll come out with an album. So I feel so grateful to be in this body, in this building with all of you here sharing these works. And as long as we create art, I think it's important that we share art. And I respect people who choose to make things and kind of not show them, like a la Hilma af Klint or whatever. But at the same time, like, I think that having these discussions and being able to have my work juxtaposed with other artists that I admire is super important. And I'm really proud to be here.
So great. We want that album, by the way. And your acting career.
Give me 20 years for the album.
20 years. I love it. Kira, I'm curious about this notion of vulnerability with you, because again, I think this is an innate part of what you all do. It's just, to some degree, it's like you're fighting that current or you're accepting that. But how do you manage those vulnerable moments as an artist in your work, in your practice? How do you kind of channel into confidence?
Ooh, I think that's a daily practice. I mean, as artists, I think we are sensitive creatures by nature. We kind of always have these antennas up and are constantly always absorbing things. And for me, I can only say, yes, it's definitely a daily practice, like a spiritual practice. There are some days that I'm like, yeah, I can take on the world. And other days like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? What have I chosen to do? And that even comes to showing my work. You know, you're in the studio, it's just me in there, and I'm vibing, music, whatever. This looks so good. And then it moves out of my space where I'm controlling it. You know, I can let or invite people in or out. And then it's out there in the world to be judged, critiqued. We are a glutton for punishment artists. Like, why? But, you know, I think from that vulnerability, at least for me, I hope that I can potentially encourage somebody else to be vulnerable and find confidence through that, if that makes sense. I think that goes back to almost like the representation thing, you know, representation matters. So for me, showing my work, even though it's vulnerable for me, I gain confidence from that, and I also feel inspired because I think possibly it could be inspiring somebody else to say, oh, she's doing it. She looks pretty confident in that. I'm gonna go out on a limb and try it as well, you know? But it's something that I have to work on. It's a muscle, you know, and if I don't, then, you know, like muscles, they get weak. Yeah.
That's so honest. Thank you. That's so great to hear that. Jamie, I'm going to ask the same question. And again, like this notion of trepidation and apprehension of showing the work, and what is that like, the idea that, okay, I'm going to reveal this? How has that process been for you?
I feel, well, I've never really been super confident about my art because it's always really just been for me. So when I was even approached to do this, I was like, oh, should I do it? I don't know. Because I'm like pretty confident in all the other aspects of like my work and the other things I do, but it is very vulnerable. And also like I feel, I mean, maybe there's also this part of me that's like maybe less vulnerable about it because I'm it's a group full of other women, and like, you know, even on our prep call for this, we were talking about the idea of vulnerability, and like some of us are entering a new phase in our lives, like perimenopause or menopause, and you know, this is a time now when like we have this opportunity to talk about it finally. Yeah. Like my mom's generation didn't talk about this at all, and so being able to like be on social media and just like say something in stories and have like all of the women who follow you like contact you and be like, I'm going through the same thing. It's like we need that. Like we need that community, and I think it's super important. And like that is a thread that's like through my work, but also like it's now like we're able to talk about it in public and in the open, and like it's just a wonderful time. And I think that allows people to feel more confident and not feel like, oh, it's just me, something's wrong with me. No, it's all of us. Like we're all in this together.
No, that's so true because you're right. It's like this brilliant snowball effect. Like one person mentions it, and then someone forwards. I know, and it's as women that is like health and all these things that are happening constantly. These molecules that are being thrown around, hormones and feelings. But it's more than that. You're right. It's like the sharing and the releasing continues to kind of help this community.
I think this is something women have always done. We just kind of did it behind closed
Closed
doors. But now we're like,
exactly.
oh, we've got a camera on our phone, and we're just going to tell you all about it now. And you're going to have to listen.
Right. You must listen. Exactly.
Yeah.
Adrienne, I'd love your thoughts on this too, because you have a really robust social media following, and you are very honest. You speak directly to the camera. You know, you're willing to share. You really are. How are you? What inner confidence? What allows you to do that? Like, how are you comfortable getting past any apprehensions?
We can get dark, but honestly, it was religion. We were forced to confess our sins, and even from a young kid, you had to grab the mic and tell the whole congregation. And then as I grew up, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I did it, and da-da-da-da-da. And then I went to therapy, and I started deconstructing, and then my daughter started getting older, and I'm like, there's no way I'm leaving these girls here, and they are not just on fire with being their most authentic creative selves. So again, my North Star was them. That's how I had to break that generational kind of curse, whatever. And even my therapist asked me that. He was like, I gotta tell my other clients, how did you
do this?
And honestly, I just don't give a shit. I've been through a lot. I just don't care. What are you gonna do? I don't care.
See, that to me, like if we're going from maybe vulnerability to confidence, then there's that sort of unapologetic self.
That's where I'm at.
The zenith in my own personal take. That's where it would be so lovely to be there. Just be like, I don't care. Not in a harsh way, not in a demeaning way.
Not at all. And I've just kind of, like you were saying, I didn't know that it would develop my own sort of sanctuary, my own sort of community of women who not only could relate to the art, but to the message as well of just being your free, especially now. Just please be you.
Yeah. We were briefly talking about as well, Adrienne and I, just that we're in this era of like constant opinions, like uninvited opinions and feedback. Thank you very much. I didn't ask to hear what you think, nameless troll behind the screen or on the keyboard. And I'm wondering, as the unapologetic ambassador, how are you like boxing that out? How are you, and this is for everyone, and again, because to do what you do and to bring it into the world, you know there's going to be an invitation of feelings and opinions. How are you kind of consciously saying, I'm not going to listen to this, or I'm not going to?
For me, it is a spiritual thing. It is a spiritual thing. And so a lot of that is also in my art. When I deconstructed from the form of religion that I was brought up in, it gave me that extra power. I started studying the goddesses and the orishas that were erased from my complete knowledge. And I found strength in them, and they were unapologetic, and they stood tall, and they were the head of the matriarchy. They ran the kingdoms and the wars. And so to me, it was just a historical remembrance. And I hate to sound cliche, but I was next ordained to be a pastor, you know, so they just didn't expect my church to like be on canvas. So.
Yeah. Wow. Kira, wondering how you also kind of box it out, and maybe more importantly, let's maybe step away from that, but just staying with this idea of the matriarchy. And I know you have kind of deep feelings about this in your own work and your own life. How are you, I think it's a beautiful name. I don't know where Yale went. I was just trying to reference her. There she is. I was like, beautiful, matriarchy. How is that, how are you identifying that for yourself in your community of artists and, you know, in your work? Because that is a big theme.
Yeah, I mean, matriarchy, when I hear that word, I just think of my family. I was raised in a family of women, that's just me. I mean, there was my dad. I love him to death. But I was truly raised by, a group of women. And then historically or ancestrally speaking, I learned from, I come from a matrilineal line of people, tribe out of Africa, meaning goods and things or whatnot, were passed down through the women. I'm like, well, duh, that makes sense. So it's almost inherent in me, I guess. You know, I can't deny it, I can't fight it. I don't ever think it's something I consciously go out there thinking about. I just think that was the way I was raised. It's ingrained in me, and that's the way I kind of move through the world, and it's probably shaped the way I think about things, and, you know, flows through and into my work.
Yeah.
You
Like
know?
you can't help but be there. It's just innate.
It's innate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jamie, I was going to ask you this idea of matriarchy in the context of what you were saying earlier about technology. And I think it's, at least for me, I tend to think of technology as a masculine. I know that sounds maybe a little weird, but it's kind of coded that way, and progress and all these things. And you not only incorporate that, but you have a lot of experience, a lot of professional experience in and around technology. So I'm wondering how this idea of matriarchy and your work and technology kind of all blend, and sort of what we were mentioning earlier, kind of where those are for you.
Yeah, I think women were just written out of the history of science and technology from the beginning because we didn't control the narrative. And I mean, now you're hearing all of these stories emerging of these women who, were created, they invented things, they did a lot. They sent, astronauts to space. And I actually saw something yesterday that originally before there were certain types of chips, like NASA had these they were like woven copper threads with beads, and that was like the chips that they would use. And I was like, oh, it's weaving. Oh, it's probably women. They probably did that. It's just really cool to think that women really were the first computers because they were the ones doing the punch cards and the jacquard looms, and that started the whole computing movement. But a lot of that isn't known, and I think having these conversations about that is super important, and bringing that to light, that there's this very long line of women who've been involved in computer and code and tech and science and medicine for so long, but they're just not credited for that. And it's unfortunate, but now hopefully we can start talking more about that.
Unfortunate, it's enraging, but if I can say so, it's a little frustrating. But
just a little.
Just a little. No, that's so true. Justina, I wanted to ask you about this, and actually I think maybe this is great to ask both you and Adrienne, but with your design background, I know a lot of the work that you do is in relation to, let's say, a client or someone a brand that you're working with, previously. But as an artist, it's you. You're the client. You're the driver of the expression, and I just would love to hear how that feels now. What that experience is like. I mean, the building that we're in, right, is meant for our industry of interior design, which is a very different way of being creative. But I'm very curious about your thoughts on that. Just you as the creative, full stop.
It's always been me.
Perfect.
I did.
Perfect.
A small handful of client work early in my career, and I knew instantaneously that it was not for me. I don't like being creative through someone else's lens. Some people love that, and that's beautiful for the people that enjoy that. It's not my bag. So for me, developing Jungalow, developing the blog, and then the brand and designing my own stuff for that was always about my own self-expression. Of course, when you take anything commercial, you have to make some compromises sometimes, and that's just part of the gig. But at the end of the day, for me, even though I think, if you Google me or whatever, people are going to say, oh, she's an interior designer, she's an interior designer, she's an interior designer. I've always self-defined as an artist. And that title has always felt more free to me. It's always felt more me to me. And, sometimes you just don't fight the current that, people try and label you as certain things, and you're seeing success with it. So I'm like, sure, you can call me that. It's fine. It's all good. But at the end of the day, for me, it's always been about my own self-expression.
So artist first, and then, yes, you happen to do these other things. Adrienne, I wanted to ask you, a lot of the work that you've done, you do portraits. It's kind of a huge aspect to your practice. And what is that experience like in terms of if you've been commissioned to do a portrait? How are you able to navigate and keep yourself in that process of working on a commission?
I recently just stopped commissions after 10 years. Okay.
Tell us why.
At the end of last year because I was tired of it. I did not care how much it was. It was nauseating. It started to get sick. Yeah. I hated it. And I'd make it exactly how you wanted it, but it wasn't in my soul anymore. And it wasn't as important as it used to be for me for some reason. Sort of like what you're saying, I mean, I had to provide for my kids, of course. That's initially how it happened. But then after a while, it was just like, yeah, I just want to paint what I feel, what I'm going through, what I see, and what I want to express, honestly. And I'm still low-key in that transition, you know?
Interesting. So, what have you kind of learned as you're in that transition? Are you happy to obviously you're happy to abandon aspects of it.
That feels a little like a shedding of skin. But at the same time, at least it's not nauseating. It's just very raw, and it's very, it feels more like my truest muse. And that's so corny, but that's how I feel.
That's great. Yeah. So when you're looking forward, can you kind of tell us what's appealing about the work that you're about to do, or maybe the work that you're concepting?
Sure. So I'm recently I'm an empty nester for the first time. And so my daughters are off doing their little wild thing. And so proud of them. And I'm by myself for the first time. I am going through a divorce. And so everything is I've just been stuck from a 14-year marriage. And so I've just been stuck in my studio, in my loft, just painting just as raw as possible. I am terrified to show it. Whenever I have company, even you came and I hit it. And
just don't look over there. You just draped everything.
No, but I feel a lot more comfortable now. I think, like you were saying, I'm safe when it's in my view, and the music's on and the lights are on, and I'm just dancing all naked and shit. And you were inspiring of that. I had a double mastectomy, and so I just want to show it all. And just, it feels releasing, and I don't know, something's happening internally that's kind of beyond the creating part. It's freeing me, I guess.
Do you imagine that the work you'll be doing looks different, feels different, sort of kind of evolving in a different direction?
In a way, yeah. So I don't want to point out everything, but if you look at the blueprint on the corner, there's where I started years ago. It was no color. Wow. It was just form. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. And so it kind of started off as women are the blueprint, mothers are the blueprint, cosmically. And then it kind of led to oil painting and more luminant colors that I would dream and try to just try to make it happen. But as you can see, the blueprint is kind of coming towards the back, and the figure and the woman is more so emerging from the blueprint.
Wow, that's great.
Y'all got that? Oh,
that's so great. Jaime, I'm curious about the sort of evolution of your work now. You've shown here, and what kind of is your guiding light going forward? What are you kind of thinking about?
I mean, I want to see how far I can push this, and I am not an engineer or a math person, but I'm vibe coding my own app for making tapestries.
Wow.
That I'm going to work from using generative code.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to see how far I can push it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm excited to see kind of where it goes, because all of the work that's here, that's all I've got. That's so far since 2020. So I want to just make more work.
And you were telling me these weavings take a long time. I mean, each piece is not, everything takes the time.
Yeah, I'm using a tapestry loom, so I'm literally putting my fingers in and out of the threads instead of using a shuttle, so it's a little bit different of a process, but I like that tangible process. It really connects me to the work in a completely different way.
Same question for the two of you. Justina, where are you kind of now in your creative your creative practice, and maybe what are you looking to next?
I don't know. I honestly don't know how to answer that because I do feel like my practice is so temporal. Like I just will show up in front of a canvas and I don't have ideas about exactly what I normally. Every now and again I'll be like, oh, I have this idea for this thing I want to do with these eyes that all connect, and but most of the time it's just me showing up and just painting and seeing what happens. I will say I've been writing a lot lately. And I've been writing a lot and seeing how that works together with my painting. And so again, for me, it's about helping me find balance, helping me find flow, and different media come in and out of that through my creative process. Sometimes it's through painting, sometimes it's through more tactile craft, sometimes it's through writing, sometimes it's through music. But I actually love the interdisciplinary aspect of being an artist and being able to play and experiment in these different media. So I feel like for me, that's a huge part of the freedom of being an artist. Like it's playing. I'm playing. I'm having fun, and in the process, hopefully, getting to know myself better. Hopefully, inspiring others, helping others. Also. Make themselves feel more free to find more about themselves and their creativity and bring that out in themselves as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep painting. Who knows where it'll go. Right now I'm actually working on a body of work where I've actually started to blend more of the textile and fiber work that I was trained in and actually into my paintings instead of just letting it be more of a source of inspiration. I'm actually doing some hand embroidery, which is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I'm finally doing it. And it's been an interesting process, the whole tactility, is that a word? To do that versus using, a paintbrush and paint sticks. So that's been really wonderful to explore. It's actually slowed me down even more so, which I think is a wonderful thing until I start to think about deadlines and things that I have to meet. I'm like, we need to do this faster. But I mean, to like what you said, Justina, I have so many ideas in my head. I have sketchbooks, like you, Jamie, full of ideas of things that I want to execute, and they're just waiting for me. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a painting. It could be something else. I've done residencies where I've learned a little bit about metal design. I'm like, ooh, what can I do with that? So it's about, I want to continue to explore different media and see how that can affect or be embedded into my practice. But where exactly, I don't have a formal plan. This year, I took a little break from the design background so I could focus solely on my painting practice, but I'm also inching to get back to it. I miss that a bit, but I also have a 4-year-old, and my time in the studio is very limited. So, I guess other plans would be getting more time for my practice, but yeah.
That's great. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up because there seems to be a group of people who are ready to party. They're just coming and coming. So do we have time for any questions, or should we just welcome everyone to come up and meet?
Thank you all. This has been unbelievable. I'm like shaking. There's just so much power up here. And woo! To hear on our call, first of all, put your vulnerability out there, to hear how you felt about your self-portraits, and then to hear on our call that Adrienne was inspired by seeing your self-portraits to do more of her self-portraits. That is what matriarchy is all about. When women see other women being their true selves, it gives all of us confidence to be the best that we can. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Sarah from Zephyr, Pavlina and Jerry from Dow Bill, and Ursula from Ferguson and Signature Hardware. I have genuine relationships with all of these women, and your support means the world. Thank you. Let's party! Woo!